you're probably with the consensus that nothing today is going to happen, yes?
Yeah, so I think BOJ want to increase interest rate sometime this year, but at this moment, so much uncertainty, and especially this tariff, increase for the Japanese product is a major concern for the Japanese manufacturer. So it's not a very good time to raise interest rate.
Sayuri-san, I wanted to ask you about the tariff situation because we are expecting those announcements in early April, whether that's in relation to the reciprocal tariffs or the particular sectorial tariffs. And particularly, I'm thinking about, of course, the autos for Japan. How will that change the outlook for the Bank of Japan? Markets are pricing in one hike this year. Could this mean no hikes in the year, given the impact that it will have on economic growth in Japan, also business sentiment? And what do you think is the right thing for the central bank to do?
Yes. So if we look at the Japanese domestic economy, it's very weak. Last year's real GDP was just 0.1%, and consumption remained very, very sluggish, and partly because of a price hike. So domestic economy is so weak. So Bank of Japan have to be very careful in terms of timing to raise interest rate. And this tariff shocks are really large for Japan because at the beginning of this year, when there was a summit between Japanese Prime Minister and President Trump, there was a very good, friendly atmosphere. So people anticipated that Japan will have a special treatment, but nothing really happening. And Japan's product, steel, automobile, probably agriculture product, they are subject to higher tariffs. So this is a big shock. So real GDP this year is supposed to be 1%, but can be much lower than that.
And so, Yuri-san, does that mean then that potentially we could see a Bank of Japan standing pat for the rest of the year, in your view?
Okay, here is a dilemma. Because right now, headline inflation is 4%. So BOJ, Bank of Japan, is justified in terms of raising interest rate. But this kind of inflation is mostly coming from yen's depreciation and certain food high prices. It's transitory. So BOJ does not have a lot of time in terms of the chances to raise interest rate, because once yen starts to appreciate, imported inflation starts to come down, and then, headline inflation can go below 2%, then it will be much harder for BOJ to raise interest rate. So in that sense, Bank of Japan has dilemma. So I think they will try to raise interest rate this year, but at this moment, it's so much uncertainty, so they cannot take a move.
Sayuri, Martin here. Great to see you again, and always a pleasure having you on the show. One thing we are watching, even if there is no move on rates, actual move on rates, is what happens with the JGB yields. And we were just showing folks how you've got the 10 at about 150 basis points, which is not far off what a lot of people think should be about fair value for the Japanese 10. There's been some chatter that while they may not actually move to hike rates, what they potentially could do is taper bond buying in order to sort of stealthily get yields up. What do you think is the likelihood of that happening?
Yeah, so this volatility of 10-year yield is also major concerns. Actually, long time ago, before 2010, before Japan took a lot of ambitious unconventional monetary policy, the 10-year yield was above 2%. So Japan is kind of heading to that kind of direction, right? But at the same time, we have huge debt, so it's much more fragile. So I think BOJ have to be very careful and try to not to have too much impact on the long-term interest rate, because that will be very damaging to Japanese economy. So 1.5% is good, but the market expect BOJ will raise short-term interest rate above 1%. So it's possible to 10-year yield go up.